Excited as always to share a little bit about what we've been up to over the last 3 months, and also give you a sneak peek of what's next. We are going to focus today on these kind of two to three areas that we've been working on. One around collaboration, and the second around revenue. And actually, a little bit of the reason that there's a kind of between 2 and 3 is we have some new features coming along the way to help you find more work, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we talk about kind of our sneak peek into the future. We are going to skip intros for the sake of time, but we have a good portion of our product team here. Just so you know, the product team, for those that are not in tech necessarily, is kind of the team that's responsible for prioritizing which problems we're addressing and ideally coming up with great solutions for those. So without further ado, I'd like to talk a little bit more about how this quarter we've improved collaboration on projects, specifically around consultants. And I will say, if you've been attending these webinars in the past, this has been a theme of ours for quite a while. So in some spots here, we're going to share some stuff that we've already shared. However, I think we're now at a point where we feel really confident that most of this workflow is in a really good spot and can be leveraged really highly, and we have lots of customers that are doing that. So I wanted to take a second to kind of put it all together. What are all these pieces that we have around collaboration, and what's the best way to attack it? How should you do this? So first off, just a reminder, just taking a huge step back, we about 9 months ago, we added the ability in Monograph for you to invite your consultants directly to your projects, with the idea that a lot of your overhead, a lot of the collaboration that happens between you and consultants happens in your inbox. And we think that we can make this more efficient by doing it in Monograph. And so what we now have is your ability that when you add consultants to your projects, you can also invite them to view those projects with the timelines, with requests for bills, all within the Monograph experience for them. And we're going to do a demo in a few minutes where we show you exactly what those consultants see versus what you see in projects. And so stay tuned for that in a second. But the general idea here is there are kind of two main areas that you're trying to focus on, right? You have your timelines and the changes there, and making sure that you guys are in sync and you can communicate that way. And you also, of course, need to pay your bills. They need to have visibility on where the status of those bills. And so you can now do all of that in Monograph directly with your consultants. And again, I'll talk a little bit more through this in the demo, but that first page was about the timelines and about the bills. And over here, we're talking more about how you can now share notes with your consultants. And so this is definitely new for this quarter. We introduced this concept of notes in projects last quarter. Hopefully you've had a chance to try it out. And just to call out, this is not just available on desktop where maybe you've seen it very prominently, but you can also do it on the mobile app. So again, just a reminder, the mobile app is free. It's now on both iOS and Android. Your whole team, especially a lot of your individual contributors, this might be the only the interaction with Monograph that they need, because they can track time, they can submit expenses, and now they can take notes when they're on the go. So when you're on the site, you can record a note. Monograph will actually transcribe that note. So that could be, you just saying, hey, these are the things that happened in this meeting, or it could just be literally a recording of a client meeting that you're having. And we will transcribe it as well as then summarize that using AI to try to bring out the key details that matter. You can also take a picture of handwritten notes or any other kind of documents that you have, or of course you can manually type in notes if you'd like. So that was all introduced last quarter, but what we've added this quarter is the ability to also now share those notes, not just with your internal team, but with your consultant as well. So you can now choose to, if you'd like, share that with any consultants that are collaborating with you on the project. And again, the use cases here are maybe some context on, I had a client meeting, we moved a timeline, here's why. Any other kind of updates on what's happening as well. You probably have also seen that there are AI summaries now on the project itself at the top that try to summarize kind of what happened over the last week. That the idea there is obviously for your own use, but also you can share those with your consultant if you choose to just make that easier and not to so you don't have to write a bunch of notes yourself. All right. So that's all the kind of day-to-day on how you would work. Now, we just introduced this a few days ago, actually. We now have an ability for you to see all of your consultant financials all in one place. So broken down by each consultant company. So the use cases here are, I need to know how much do I owe MEP, or how much have they billed me? How much have I billed the client? That's all now available on one screen. For those of you that are familiar with the project financials page, there is a consultant table on that page, but that's project by project. So this is effectively a roll-up of that report so that you can kind of more see it for the use case of like trying to manage your relationships with each of your consultants and have a good understanding of what's going on from a high level. And then, and you can also drill down to each project, and that will effectively recreate what you see in the project view, although it's not broken down by phase, which is another aspect of the project specific one. Now, when you click in onto any given consultant, now in that directory, we kind of lifted our directory to go from just a simple, contact information type directory to having a lot more insights on what you can do. So again, we do a little bit of a summary based on what we're seeing and the activity that you've had with them. Of course, you still have all your basic contact info and adding contacts and things of that nature. But we're also now trying to provide you some more insights. If you use our deliverable functionality with your consultants, this will tell you how accurate, how often they've been delivering those things on time, as well as the budget reliability. So when you have set a budget in a project for a certain amount, do the bills that you receive from that consultant fit within that budget, or are they exceeding that? So that kind of helps you get a sense of the types of interactions you're having with each of your consultants. You can also have a history. So we'll automatically put in some activities like bills and things of that nature, but you can also put comments in here. You can tag your other employees, other team members in there if you want to let them know, and they'll receive a notification just like all of our other comments. So we feel like from adding this will provide a lot more insight into how you're working with all of your individual consultants, and hopefully save you a lot of time and give you a lot more insight into who to work with in the future. I'll show in the demo, I don't have it in the screenshots here, but there's also new projects and bills and an upgrade on the bills tab where you get a lot more information, again, rolled up by consultant on which projects you're working on and the bills, and I'll show that in the demo in a second. So with that, I'm actually going to switch over to the demo environment. This is a demo org, so if there is anything slightly odd that happens, just normal caveat, live demos are always fun. But I'm hoping that, I also, full disclosure, I didn't spend time trying to make this perfect on purpose, because I want this to represent what a real org might look like. So I'm going to go first and show you how you can add a consultant or invite a consultant. So I'm just going to click on any old project here. I'll go to the budget. And I will go to the consultant section. And so it looks like in this situation, I had already created consultants, but I hadn't specified which actual company. They're just kind of generically set up as a surveyor or a civil engineer, what have you. So I'm going to just edit one of those and specify one of my consultant companies. And when doing so, I'm going to get prompted to collaborate with them. So the default, which we highly recommend, is just not only should you invite them to this project, but this will just invite them without you having to worry about this anymore to all the future projects that they've been assigned to. That just makes it easier for you. You don't have to do this step multiple times. Or if you choose, you can just do it on this particular project if you'd like. You can obviously skip this, but again, our goal is to make this as seamless as possible. So we'd recommend doing it. I can share you some stats later, but basically we find that the people that are using this, they're cutting down on their admin time. They're getting paid faster. Everyone's a lot happier. So yeah, highly recommend. And then you can choose which of your contacts in that organization this invite should be sent to. So ideally, you pick the person that's most responsible for kind of approving this kind of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And because this is a demo environment, I'm not going to go through the acceptance and all that, and I'm going to hand it over to Pete for in a little bit to show you a little bit more of what their experience might look like. But first, I'm going to go back and show you some of the other features that I was mentioning. So, okay. So now let's say they are now on your project and you've been taking diligent notes along the way. As I mentioned, these are examples of when someone might have recorded a meeting. They can see a full transcript of said meeting. And this was recorded on their mobile device. You can also upload a recording like an MP3 to directly to the desktop app as well. They'll see a transcript as well as kind of a summary. So this was a summary generated by the AI. You can edit that, of course, once it reads your transcript. And now other people in the org can leave comments. This makes sense. Thanks for sharing. That maybe isn't particularly useful, but for demo purposes, I'm going to put that here. But and then when you're creating a new note, as I mentioned before, I can say that I want to share this with everyone, which is the default. Just my internal team. I only want this to be viewable internally, or just one of the consultants. If for some reason this is a message that actually I just want to send to the consultant and I don't necessarily want the rest of my team to see that. So that is what you have here. And like I said, you can upload files and do things like that. So that is on the project management side. I am going to go over to the bills. And Pete is going to share more about them submitting bills. But this is the list of all your bills that you've uploaded. And what will happen when someone submits a bill, very similarly, it will just show up here, but it will show up as in a review state. So you can review the bill, make sure it's right. If it's not, you can request changes, or if it is, you can just accept that and then treat it the same way. But the nice thing about that is now your consultant has visibility into that. And when your invoice gets paid from a client, you can then pay it directly through there, especially if your consultant has signed up for Stripe on their end. So then that just kind of makes that simple. You can also request bills from here. So you can just go ahead and ask a consultant to send the bill. Like I said, ideally you just set up a reminder right at the beginning. And then finally, I'm going to show you a little bit of what I was showing before. This is a new report, this consultant overview under the costs. This shows each of my consultants that I've been working with and what projects I'm working with them on, and what the situation is in terms of the budget, how much they have they've billed so far, how much you've billed to your client, and how much the client might owe. So this gives you kind of the full funnel of where all your bills are at relative to whether they've been paid by your client. And then when you go to any given consultant, in this particular case, some of this data isn't available yet, but because, yeah, actually, I thought I had one that was set, but okay, well, this was a little bit better. But yeah, basically, as I mentioned before, you have a little bit of summary of the type of work that you've been doing. You can add comments. Kevin has been great. Highly recommend using him again, or whatever other types of notes you might want to put just to kind of keep track of things that are working here. You get this insight into the budget reliability. And I mentioned this before, but now you'll get more information and summarized information on all of those kind of main top level metrics on where your stuff's at, whether you've invoiced that to the client, and then all of the projects that you've worked together on. And similarly, we had a bill section before, but now we have the summary as well. But these are effectively all the bills that I showed you in the other place, but just for this one consultant. So our whole goal here is to make this relationship and this partnership as simple as possible and all in one place and nice and efficient. So with that, I'm actually going to hand it over to Pete for a moment to show you what the consultant might see if they are collaborating with you.
Great. Ashish, I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah.
Good morning to those on the East Coast. Good afternoon to those on the East Coast. Good morning to those on the West Coast. I'm going to be sharing what a consultant sees in this collaborative relationship. It'll take about 1 or 2 minutes. You should be able to see Safari. I'm signed in as a consultant using the freemium version of our product. Remember, inviting consultants and collaborating with them costs you or the consultant nothing. So I'm signed in here as a consultant, Club Blue Collaborators. You can see I'm actually collaborating on 5 different projects. And this is the one, let's imagine, that Ashish had invited me to collaborate on. So I can see the Gantt for that right here, but let me dive in and let's look at the details. So I want to first point out that the collaboration and visibility around these projects is mostly around the schedule and deliverables and bills. It does not have anything to do, I should say, the consultant has no visibility into the rates that the architect is charging, the invoicing that the architects have sent to their client or anything like that. There's not much financial information in here other than the bills that flow back and forth between the consultant and the architect. You can see the schedule, more importantly, for each phase that you're collaborating on, including the milestones and any deliverables that have been assigned to the consultant by the architect, Ashish. So here are some deliverables that have been signed to me, the consultant, by Ashish. You can also see some of the notes that we're collaborating on down here about the project, a project update in this case from the architect, and a response from me, along with an attachment and another update from me for my team here. So you can see the project notes that the consultant can use to keep both Ashish, the architect, up to date on the project and the rest of their team. From there, I want to dive into billing. Actually, let's jump over to notifications, because part of the reason why it's important and valuable for architects to collaborate with their consultants is all the information that we send back and forth between the systems to keep both the architect and the consultant out of their inbox. Ashish mentioned that earlier. So you can see here, I'm getting a number of notifications here about being assigned to deliverables. I can see notifications about changes to timelines that the architect made to keep me up to date on changes to, for example, a particular phase that has a timeline update. And I can also see the requests for those invoices or bills. So I'm going to go ahead and follow through on that and show you how we might send a bill as a consultant over to our architect, Ashish. So he's requested a bill here on this lake house project. Here's a list of bills. I can go to upload an invoice. Let me go grab a bill here. This is going to the lake house project. Worth that. Actually, let's make this smaller. $500. A1 invoice. Little note for Ashish. Click save. This is a reminder of something else I wanted to mention. As a freemium user, a consultant can set up Stripe and electronic payments for their architect clients. So if I wanted to, I could set up this bill that I'm sending over to Ashish to be paid electronically. I'm going to skip that right now because this demo environment isn't set up for that, but know that that's possible. And we actually have a lot of collaboration. We have a lot of architects and consultants using Stripe to pay each other faster. So I'm going to skip that here. And that bill has now been uploaded. It's this A1 bill, and it would appear over in that list of bill that Ashish was looking at 5 minutes ago, tagged ready for review. That's pretty much it. Post any questions into the chat, and Ashish, I'm going to stop sharing and flip it back over to you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And yeah, I hopefully the relatively quick demo is to show that this should be pretty intuitive for most people, and just save you time. That's the goal. That being said, I know a lot has been shared here, so here's a fun little summary. We call it a cheat sheet. You can screenshot this if you want. We are sending out a recording, so don't worry, you don't have to do it at this moment. But this is just kind of a summary of where we think about when you're collaborating. You kind of have on the project management side, these are the areas that you can focus on or do when you're collaborating in terms of communicating with the different stakeholders. That's kind of in this middle area. And then, of course, on the billing and admin side. And again, hopefully this all feels fairly seamless and it's not as separate and disparate as this, but at the same time, if this is your role, you can kind of look at the areas that are important to you. Awesome. So with that, and I think Pete segued nicely into what about collecting revenue? I think anyone that's been on Monograph for a while knows that this is a big area of focus for us. We know that you're small businesses, and for the most part, and that generally speaking, cash flow is one of the biggest challenges. And so a lot of our focus is trying to figure out how to make that as efficient as possible, as quick as possible, so that you're getting paid ultimately, and that's the really most important thing. So I'm going to share some of the features we've added in a second, but first we thought it was useful to just kind of give you our recommendation on the best way to very efficiently and very quickly use Monograph to collect payment. So first of all, we introduced, and I'll share more about that in a second, this concept of invoice templates. And I think this solved two problems. One, there was often a lot of questions about more customization available in invoices. And we are always balancing customization with ease of use as well as speed to complete. And so what we've found, this is the trade-off that we made, and I think it's the right one, where we are allowing more customization, but ideally you're doing it fewer times because you're saving it as a template that then can be reused. And so I'll share more about that in a second, but basically you have a lot more functionality where you can change the names of columns, include different items, have different ways to show it, and save those and then reuse it. But what I would say is the most important rule here is let's try to keep this as simple as possible. It's basically as simple as you can get away with your clients, because the more complex, the more information, the more the more opportunities for questions, the slower you're going to get paid, because that is going to cause them to ask those questions. So I would strongly recommend just having a few of those and just reusing them, and then maybe for very finicky clients, you might have to create a custom template for them, but hopefully you just have a few. Another feature that we just added, which I'll talk about in a second, is the concept of writing off time. I know that's been a long requested feature. And so now what our best practice is to review your unbilled time every month, then make sure that you're writing off anything, especially mainly at the end of the phase. Let's say you went over budget. Let's say there was just time that you're not going to charge for. Let's write all of that off. And once those are all cleared up, then you can use our batch creation tool to just select a bunch of projects, hit create, and it will create all of them right out of the gate. So you don't have to do those one by one. And if for those of you that have more of a review process, then you can also use our notification system, our commenting system, to tag whoever needs to review said invoice and have them make any notes or make any changes if they want to just change it themselves. And then they can basically send it, right? And I will say before sending it, I'll talk a little bit more about this on the next page, but optimizing your payment settings is really important. Again, we want to reduce friction. We want our clients to see the invoice, not have any questions, pay it, done, not even think about it. We had a quote from an architect that recently where he just said, you know what, now my clients can pay for my services the same way they pay for everything else in their life. Like, it's as simple as that. And that's what we need to do, right? So removing all those distractions, I'll talk a little bit more about that, but having extra attachments, having fees, having alternate methods outside of this flow, those are all ways that you're going to have people get out of the kind of e-commerce flow and slow things down. And then finally, if you do all of these steps and basically everyone is paying through Monograph, you're going to eliminate all the reconciliation on your side. We have introduced, and again, I'll talk about this in a second, some improvements to our sync between Stripe and QuickBooks. And so now it's effectively fully automated. There's very little you need to do in QBO now, as long as all those payments happen through Monograph. So this is kind of our best or our suggestion for how to do this. And I am going to kind of double click on the one that I was talking about with friction, e-commerce best practices. So you might be like, what does this have to do with me? You ideally should be an e-commerce platform. Everyone, as I was mentioning before, and I'm sure everyone here spends a lot of money and does a lot of things online, and they are used to a very simple flow that's very consistent. This is not an area you want to differentiate on, right? Like you differentiate on your services, you differentiate on, things that are unique to you, but payments should be payments. And so what are some of those kind of e-commerce best practices? And I love this quote, basically every day, every hour, every minute that your payment is delayed, you're basically lending your client money. So like, how much money are you willing to lend them? So let's figure out how to get this happening as quickly as possible. So the golden rule in e-commerce is keep clients in the flow. This is like when you go through Amazon, they don't let you out. You can basically once you're in that checkout flow, like there's nothing you can do. There's no links anywhere else. And so keeping that in mind in this same world, of course it's a little bit different, but basically you want to keep people just focused on this flow. So what does that mean? That means give them the payment options they expect, right? So if they get there and they're like, oh, okay, I need to go somewhere else. I need to use Venmo. I need to enter some other thing, or I can't use my credit card. Those are things that are going to cause challenges with that flow. And the simpler it is, the faster you're going to get paid, right? So like even if there's another method that doesn't cost them money or whatever, once they leave, like they're going to forget, they're going to get distracted. They are going to take a long time maybe to pay, or maybe they won't pay. And we have seen, we have evidence that that's exactly what happens. Payment fees. Like I know that people don't want to pay fees. Of course you don't want to pay fees, but you're paying for, that's the cost of doing business. You're paying for that speed, right? And so I'll talk to you more. I'm going to give you an example of a customer of ours that has done all this. And the reality is you're not going to pay those full fees that for credit cards, for example, by allowing them the options. Most people will use one or the other. And even though you're paying those fees, generally speaking, you're not going to pay that full freight because people are going to use the cheaper option in a lot of cases. And I will note that in some states, it's actually illegal to pass on those payment fees, but that's not really the reason that I think you shouldn't do it. I think you shouldn't do it because it's worth it, frankly. All right, and so I kind of mentioned this already, but payments outside of the flow. I think this is a paradox that I think a lot of people run into. The theory is, well, let's give them as many options as possible because I just want them to pay. The problem with that is the more options you give, there's kind of this concept of tyranny of choice. You give people too many options and then they kind of panic, or they take a second to try to figure it out, or they leave your flow to do something else. They're like, oh, great, Venmo, that's cheaper. I'm going to do that. Oh, wait, I forgot. Oh, or I picked up my phone and I have 5 notifications for something else, and now it's gone, right? And so all of that data that we have shows that when payments aren't paid through Monograph, they take at least twice as long, and in a lot of cases, a lot longer than that. This one's an interesting one, probably a non-intuitive one, but one that we have the data on. We recently, well, not recently, about a year ago, we added the feature to allow you to just include the PDF version of the invoice in the email itself. And honestly, this was a big mistake on our part. We shouldn't have done that. And the reason for that is what's happening is a lot of folks are not even bothering to go to the payment checkout flow, because instead they just look at the PDF and then they maybe read something, and then they're going to kind of bypass this whole thing, and there's not that urgency. Versus when you have them go into the checkout flow, then we have the ability for them to download a PDF. So if your client is like, I need a PDF, it's like, no problem, you have a PDF. However, by going into the checkout flow, now you're actually going all the way through the process. This PDF attachment thing has actually kind of slowed down the payment rate. And I think that that's actually, a disservice to you. So that's why I'm letting you know. We're not taking it away, but we are now recommending that you not use that if you don't have to. All right. So I'm sitting up here preaching. You're probably like, whatever. Of course, you're saying all that. You want us to use Monograph to pay and whatever. This is a real firm. I'm not going to share their, any kind of personal information about them because I don't have that permission. But this is a real firm that's using Monograph, and I want to show you that this actually does work. So this is a 10-person firm. They have all of their projects through Monograph. They actually started using Monograph in 2022, but didn't start using payments till much more recently, 2025. And what are they doing? And what are they doing right? What are they not doing? So for all those things that I said, they're doing most of them. So they are offering credit cards and ACH. They are basically keeping their clients in the flow. 78% of their invoices are paid through Monograph. So that means that they are getting everyone or for the most part, getting everyone through here. We do have some people that are at 100%. They don't accept payment in any other way. I'm not necessarily suggesting you do that, but I do think that simplifies a lot of things for you. They are paying all those fees. So this is what I was referencing before. Even though they have credit cards and ACH available for every single invoice, they're actually seeing a mix. Some people, maybe they don't have that much on their credit card. Maybe they don't feel comfortable using credit cards. Whatever the reason, the actual payment rate that they're paying is 1.45%. So it's not that 3%. It's not the thing that maybe is scary. Again, I would argue even at 3%, it's worth it. But just so you know, it will generally be lower. And then they are actually attaching PDFs to all their invoices. So maybe that's the way that they can get to 100%. But for full transparency, they're not necessarily doing everything that I suggest. And so, okay, what are their results? So just so you have a reference, they are doing about 172K annually per employee, which is right. Just for those of you that have seen some of our reports that go out there, that's right around the average. So for Monograph, it's much actually higher than the overall average in the industry, but for a Monograph customer, that's about right. Now, where they're completely blowing it out of the water, their profit margin is 26.5%. That's, even if you're not a finance person, hopefully, in a services business, that's amazing. Most services businesses are like in the 10% range or something of that nature. Their utilization is 89%. And that's actually because they have a invoicing and admin overhead, and that is less than 5% of their time that they're spending. So just to kind of break this down, why does this all matter? It's because of all this efficiency. They're not spending a lot of time doing all this other stuff. And just to kind of really finally hit home, and Pete was talking about this with speed, the invoice, like sending out the invoice to the client to getting the money in the bank is averaging under 10 days. And actually the median, which is kind of like half of them are faster than this, is 5 days. So they are getting this money very, very quickly. I can't reiterate how great that is because that, again, just makes everything easier. And I think the profit speaks for itself. Okay. You probably didn't come here for a business lecture and that kind of thing, but I do think this is really important. Hopefully you feel the passion that I have, because I think if you can do this and automate this whole flow, it will make you guys much more profitable. And more importantly, you can spend a lot more time doing the things you care about. Okay. So back to regular programming, what specifically did we launch in the last 3 months to enable these things? So as I mentioned, and I'll show you in a minute, we have highly customizable invoice templates now. So these are, I think I already talked about it, so I'm not going to go into more granularity here, but basically you can customize it and reuse it. Writing off time. Now at the end of every phase, write off all that time that exceeds your budget. Or for some other reason shouldn't be billed, and we'll take care of it. It will no longer show up in your unbilled. We did speed up our ACH processing times. Now you can get paid within 2 days of processing time for ACH, 2 business days, I should say, on average. Sometimes a little bit faster, sometimes, with holidays and whatnot, can go a little longer, but roughly 2 business days. And then, as I mentioned, I won't, those last 2 points I'm not going to demo, but now all of the accounting references, all of the reconciliation with the right invoice and the deposit to your bank, those are all automatically generated in QBO. So you don't really have to do anything other than if you use a bank feed, you just hit the match button when QBO tells you to, and that's it. All right. And then the last thing that I'm really excited about, let's say you did all those things right, but the truth is you're still a small business. There's still some times where maybe that access to capital is still something you need. We all know, unfortunately, you got to make a payroll and you're still waiting on some client payments. There are times when you need that money. So we're excited to launch this in partnership with Stripe. We now offer loans through Stripe Capital. And just to be clear, Stripe is running this. But what we are allowing, or what we are helping with, is by connecting your payment system to Monograph and then driving a lot of payments through Monograph. What effectively happens is Stripe then has your history. It has a good idea of how your business is doing, how often you're getting paid, et cetera. And it can pre-qualify you based on that. And the more volume you're doing, the more likely you're to get pre-qualified, the more likely you're going to get a larger amount that you're pre-qualified for. And what's amazing about this is because of all that, and I won't say this happens every time, but I will say the first loan that since we launched this a few days ago, the person got the money in their bank account within a few hours after saying that they're interested. And so again, I'm not suggesting that will always happen, but it should happen fairly quickly because Stripe already has all the information. If you've signed up for Stripe, you had to answer some questions already. Now it has your history. And so those 2 things allow it to kind of give you this access as well. And then the unique thing about these loans is they're actually paid back as a percentage of your invoices. And what that means is they can actually scale up and down. So instead of having a fixed amount that you have to pay every month and kind of work with that, Stripe actually is kind of effectively willing to scale up and down with your business. So if you're getting a lot of payments that month, you can pay back more. If you're getting fewer, you can pay back less. There is a minimum over a certain period of time, but just to be clear, so if you go to total 0, it's going to be you will have to pay. But in general, it does scale up and down with your business. This is, because of fair lending practices and that thing, you will be notified via email if you qualify for this, and you can go through the Stripe process. And in the future, we'll put that information in Monograph as well. If you're interested right now, you can go into your Stripe dashboard and see if you have access. But that, yeah, we're really excited about that. Okay. I am going to shift gears back to a quick demo. I'm not going to go through everything here, but I do think it's helpful to talk about some of those new features. So I'm going to start with the, actually, sorry, I'll start with the invoice templates. Oh no, Zoom is doing the thing. Okay, I got it. So your invoice templates are in your settings section. Anyone that's probably been invoicing actively knows about this, so I'm not going to go in crazy detail, but what I do want to show here is in this demo environment, this is kind of what we're trying to convey. Let's keep this list as short as possible. We want you to be able to have, okay, this is the standard invoice we generally send, and maybe this is one very specific one. Maybe there's a particular client. We all know that there are finicky clients that need everything in a particular way, but if you can help it, you can avoid that. And so when you go into these invoices, you can customize a bunch of things. You can change, the name of sections. You can change the names of columns. Maybe you want to, we used to call this planned. Maybe you want to call it budget. Maybe you want to call it something else. And you can decide which things you share. So hopefully it's actually pretty obvious how this works. But if you have any questions, we do have detailed support articles on all of this. And you'll get a preview here. But most importantly, again, create a few of these. And then going forward, you just have to choose which one to use when you're creating an invoice. And that's what we really want to kind of encourage you to do. Okay, So as I said, every month, ideally you're billing monthly, right? You want regular cash flow. And so what you can do every month is, first of all, let's make sure that you've written off any time that shouldn't be billed. And then once you do that, you can create a batch invoice from there. So I'm going to go into this particular project oops, sorry. And you'll see here that we have what's hopeful. I mean, in this case, this is a demo work, so there are a lot of these, but hopefully you only see a few of these. We have these kind of warnings to let you know when you've exceeded budget. And so in this particular case, here's an example where this design development budget was 135K. And it looks like when you add in the time that I've worked or that my team has worked, I'm actually going to go over budget by $725. So, okay, well, what should I do about that? I should probably write that off. And so when you come into this new write-off screen, what we have is we have all the time that from all of your employees that have worked on this space. What you can do now is you hopefully have a pretty quick summary here, and I just see right away, oh, okay, I'm 725 off. I think I should write that off. That wasn't, on purpose or whatever, and so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. The simplest way to do that is just to type in 725 here, and I'm done. The more complex way is to actually, I do have to hit save, but I just wanted to show you this other stuff. The other way to do this is to assign this to individuals. So this first use case is whether, you're not particularly concerned or, you don't need to know in the future if this was related to a particular person. Maybe someone kind of went off script or that kind of thing. But if that is important to you to track, you can do it this way, where you can specify a very specific amount per user that you want to write off. And again, the idea here is that might be a situation where in the future you want to look at which of your employees are having more write-offs to maybe do a performance conversation, or just to understand, if you're having issues with communication and things like of that nature. But at the same time, we don't want to make it complex. If that's not really the issue, then you can just evenly spread that across that. They will get spread onto those folks, so you should be aware of how you're doing it. You can also add a note on why you did this. And it's as simple as that. I'm not going to do that right now because I want to leave this demo where it is. But then once you've done that, I hope this is also a feature that we've had for a while, but just reminding you, I can now say, okay, great. All of these projects are all ready to roll. I'm just going to go ahead and create draft invoices for all of them. I'm going to specify, I want to make these all for the 31st, and I can go ahead and create that. And what that will do is then create the drafts, and I can go from there. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through that entire flow, but basically then once you do that, you're good to go. And then on any given invoice, hopefully everyone is aware of this. This has been around for quite a while, but just going through that workflow, I just want to make sure everyone is aware. Sorry, just going to go through here. I can, in the preview, make notes here and say, hey, Charles, does this look good? Aiming to send this tomorrow. And, then Charles will get notified, and, hopefully we'll respond, and then you can be ready to go. So for those of you, again, that have more of a approval workflow or what have you, this is a way that you can kind of achieve that. Okay, great. I think for the sake of time, I am going to switch back to a summary of all that. Okay, again, I know I shared a lot. If you don't take anything else away, I would love for you to remember that this is the best way to kind of stop lending your clients money. I like that quote, and I think this is the right way to think about it. And again, we talked about all this, so I'm going to keep moving. All right, last topic. So this is an area that we're really excited. We're moving kind of in a direction around helping you manage and find your own work. Historically, Monograph has really only been about once you get a contract, we run your projects, or we help you run your projects, we help you get paid, but less so about helping you find more work. And so this is a new area for us and still kind of nascent, I will say that. And so a feature that we just launched recently, this will look very similar to the consultant version of this. And that's because in a lot of ways, we think of consultants and clients, as just two sides of a similar coin, right? And so what we're trying to do is help you manage those relationships with your clients. And so again, we have a lot more detail. We now have subcontacts under clients, which is a long ask feature and one that we had on consultants and hadn't had on clients. So now you can add more than one contact per client. That should hopefully simplify a bunch of folks that maybe had lots and lots of clients in situations where it was just, a subtle difference between different people at the same organization. You can now deal with that. Similarly, you have a summary. You can take notes, just like you can with consultants, to keep track of things that are happening, as well as we will put in key information like invoices being paid and things like that into this activity stream. And then you can also see the status of all your invoices, retainers, and all the projects for each one. So it's all very similar. Again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through a demo on this, but I think this is the same, hopefully that very similar to what you see on the consultant side. And our goal here, again, is for you to get a lot more understanding your relationships with your clients, thinking about, we know that repeat business is a big part of your business. And so knowing where you stand with your clients is really important. And then an area that I will say, maybe some of you are like, why are you talking about this as something you launched? I have never seen this before. We are in a limited release on this feature. This is a feature to track your leads. And so leads meaning potential work. We are in the process of testing this out with a small group where we are going to allow you to be able to track your upcoming work, build out the budgets associated with that work. And then when that is won, it automatically creates a project. So that's actually already live. Again, with the small group, and we are getting feedback from them as we speak. So it's very similar to maybe a lot of standard CRMs that you might see, where you can change status, get some key metrics around how those things are working, et cetera. We're really excited about this area. And to that end, a sneak peek of what we're doing in the future. So this is actually, at risk of being really inside baseball, this is how we think about Monograph internally. This is how we often talk about what we're doing. We think of ourselves as building out your operating system, the operating system that runs your business so that you can focus on your actual kind of passionate work. And so this is all the business side of running kind of a small architectural firm or a small A&E firm in general. And so historically, as I mentioned before, we've really been focused on these two boxes: planning your work, all of the capacity around that, and managing that work as it happens. We've started to get better on the payment and like making sure you're getting paid quickly and making sure you're paying quickly. And we'll keep building out more there. And as I mentioned, now we're really excited about building more earlier in the flow, before that contract is signed, and building out more of the pipeline there. And hopefully anyone that's been paying attention knows that we are investing in these areas where it makes sense, AI in particular, data, and some integrations with other tools are where we're kind of finding some new opportunities. So I'm just going to give this kind of high level. I will say we are building out for some very big changes or big improvements over the next few months. And so these might not be available to you immediately, but these are the things we're working on over the next several months. So on the finding more work front, being able to actually send out proposals to clients. So what I shared last was about leads and creating the actual budgets, but then actually turning those into real proposals, getting those sent to clients and having them review them and or sign them is an area that we're focused on, as well as then taking all that information and trying to help you forecast. So what if these leads convert? what will I have to do? Do I need more people? Do I need to move my timelines around? Do I need to hire for a very specific role? What's going to happen to my cash flow and my revenue? Those are kind of all areas that we'll be tackling as well as kind of giving you key metrics around how successful are you at business development. When I get a lead, how often does it make it to a certain stage? How often do I then win? And how can I do better there? And then finally, and then I promise we'll get to questions. There was a lot of content here. That I mentioned this earlier, but we do think that there's more opportunities around data and integrations, which we have a deep integration with Stripe, a deep integration with QuickBooks, and we see some more opportunities here, specifically around workplaces. Here's an example where maybe we could tell you when you have client meetings coming up based on your calendar. We could pull in potential information around your any contacts you've had with them, et cetera. So you can hopefully see the direction that we might go here on this kind of finding new work area. All right. With that, I'm finally going to pause and take a breath. And I think Eileen's going to put up a quick poll, and then we're going to jump into
Yes.
questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Ashish, for running us through that. You definitely deserve some water. It's a lot of content, a lot of really good content. Behind the scenes, thank you to everyone that's been sending questions. We've been answering as many as possible since we knew we were going to run a little short on the Q&A. But part of us, taking your feedback and evolving, it's not just feedback on, the product and things that you would like to see, but also feedback on the type of content that you would like to see. So I'm going to launch a poll here. And let me see, it's hiding. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Okay, I found it. All right, let me launch it. And I'd love for you to participate. So the question is, what part of today's session resonated the most with you, right? Was it hearing about how to record and share notes, hearing about e-commerce, leads and proposals, consultant billing? All of that helps me especially to know how to organize webinars that are relevant to you, that really help you, in with your use of Monograph. So appreciate the votes. I can see how far we've voted, so I'll keep it open for a couple more seconds. Usually try to get to at least like 75% of you participating. We're at 60. Let's see. I think we can make it. I think we can make it. All right. It's climbing. I feel like I'm one of those like 1980s like charity events on the TV. It's like, come on, keep dialing in. So okay, we're close. We're at 67%. There's a couple of you that are asleep behind the wheel. Just give me one vote. All right. All right, I won't leave it open for too much longer. 71. Oh my God, we're so close. Come on. 73%. Come on. Don't break my heart. Tomorrow's Halloween. It's a perfect week for me. 74%. I just need like one more. 76. We made it. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna end the poll. It sounds like leads and proposal management is a clear winner. So we'll definitely have more on that to come. As she said, the poll, this feature is definitely like right now in a limited beta. It's behind the scenes, but we'll share more as it becomes available. Thank you all. All right, and then with that said, I think we can move over to our Q&A portion. We have really about 4 minutes or so, so we'll look at some of these questions here. And like I said, a lot of them have already been answered. Actually, most of them have already been answered. Let's see. Actually, so there's a question here from Blake that I'm scanning. It says, can adding due dates on deliverables automatically extend a phase duration? It's more work to keep having to extend the phase manually if needing to add a deliverable after the end of the phase. So this is probably some functionality that we didn't cover today, but wondering if any of the PMs can answer that.
So this is just to be clear, are these deliverables? Is it well? Yeah. So I think at the moment we have a couple of different ways that you can extend a phase by dragging on the Gantt, obviously by entering it manually. I think if I'm understanding the question correctly, it's like the phase may be ended, but there's still deliverables that haven't completed, and we kind of have a restriction. At the moment, I think the current ways that you've mentioned are the only ways. I will just say in general, maybe there's an opportunity to say in Monograph, we do have some restrictions, or maybe even a decent number of restrictions, to try to kind of keep all of this data well aligned. And I know that sometimes that can be frustrating, but I think hopefully maybe it's not as obvious. Behind the scenes, what that does is allow us to make things a lot easier to use in general and automated and things of that nature. So yeah, I know that that sounds like a silly way to answer that very specific question, but I do think that there are just times where we have some restrictions, such as the deliverable has to happen during the phase duration so that we can do other things and other smart automations.
Awesome. Thank you for that. We have one more question here as well. This is a pretty global question, so I'll probably go ahead and answer it, which is like if we spot any bugs, any issues, if we have any questions, what's the best way to communicate these over to you? The best way to always get in touch with our support team is going to be directly from within the app. When you log in, especially if you're on the Grow plan, there's going to be a little chat bubble in the corner. That chat bubble is optimized so that if there's a question that we can send you an article that our AI intelligence can just like give you an answer. It is the fastest way. That also means that we're able to manage more inbound. So please use that. If you are not seeing that bubble when you log in, let's say you're having some kind of issue or something like that, you can always email support@monograph.com, but that's more like our snail mail version. So the messenger in the app is always going to be the fastest. All right. Okay, I think we got a last minute wind and folks started adding more questions now. All right. Yes, yay on the chat bubble for sure. Let's see. Okay, we have one last one here from Debbie. Hi, Debbie. We are finding it difficult to create reports that inform our performance for specific metrics. Is there, or when will there be an ability to create custom reports? She's your favorite custom reports.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, and this is another one where, philosophically, we don't want you to spend all your time pulling reports and figuring things out. So we try to do as much as we can to try to answer questions directly for you. Having said that, I realize that there are times when you do need to have very specific questions answered. So I'm going to say two things. One, I would, just going back to what Eileen said, send in a question through support or what have you. Oftentimes we might be able to answer, oftentimes people are like, oh, I want this in this very particular way. But then when you ask them what the actual thing they're trying to answer, we might have a different way to answer that question. So that's number one. Number two, we are currently, I didn't talk about it today, we are testing out some concepts where we could have much more broad way for you to kind of talk to your data, maybe through AI. This is all very new. We're testing it out right now. But I will say that our goal in Monograph is not to build a fancy custom report builder. Sorry, like that's just, we don't think that that fits the ethos of what we're trying to do. We're trying to get you answers to your questions as easily as possible. So we think that this new direction might achieve that without having to kind of create everything else. But in the meantime, please just send a question in. If we can't solve it, almost every time I will just send you the answer. Like that is just something that we do. We care very much about our customers. So if you have a very specific question and we can't give you a way to answer it easily, we'll just tell you the answer ourselves.
All right, Ashish, thank you for that. I think we'll call the time. We're just a minute over 2:00. Thank you for everyone that has stuck with us for the last hour, for all your questions, for your participation. We couldn't do it without you. As we said at the beginning of the webinar, this will get edited. It'll get put on YouTube so that you have that there. But if you are registered, you will automatically get a copy of this sent to your email. Usually it takes about like 24 hours between Zoom processing it and then us sending it back out. So look for it there. But again, thank you everyone for participating and for the product team for leading this session and these great demos. All right, we'll see you soon. Bye.